Bill Gates, the Microsoft billionaire, has warned that the worst of the pandemic could still be on its way. Read the room, Bill. The tech mogul told the Financial Times, "We're still at risk of this pandemic generating a variant that will be even more transmissive and even more fatal. It's not likely. I don't want to be a voice of doom and gloom. Why say it then, some would argue. But it's way above 5% risk that this pandemic, we haven't even seen the worst of it."
Oh, wow.
Backed by unpopular demand.
Way to kill the mood, eh?
Yeah.
So is there any truth to this at all? Or despite Bill Gates' best efforts, is it all just doom and gloom? Well, it sounds like it, doesn't it? By Dr Clare Craig, who's co-chair of the Heart Group, which is an organisation comprised of doctors, scientists, psychologists and other academic experts who analyse policy and guidance relating to COVID, joins us now. Thank you for your time. How right is Bill Gates, or is he just talking about the worst case scenario, really?
Thanks very much for having me on. I would say that with respiratory viruses, what we know is that when you have a bad winter, it's usually followed by a good one, and then that's followed by a bad one. That's the way it goes. And it's because when you've had a bad winter, you have fewer vulnerable people left in the population the following winter, which is what we've seen this winter, as well as, of course, Omicron being much, much less dangerous. But yes, there's every chance that if we have another variant, it could be a worse winter than we've just seen this time. There's a possibility of that happening. The point is, what do we do about that? So Bill Gates has just published a book and is pushing this idea that it's all about mask wearing and we all need to wear masks still, which is not an evidence-based position to take. And he's not the person qualified to make those comments either. So with COVID, the problem we have is that it spreads through the air. Now, when you're next to somebody who's infected, you're more likely to be around infected air. But between about 40% and maybe 30% at an extreme of people who catch COVID never have a source identified for where they got it from. And that's because although you're at more risk when you're near someone infected, once it's in the air, then it can spread through the air to people that you've never met.
OK.
And so it's basically impossible to control that. Now, Bill Gates, he's a computer expert.
This is it. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah,
could just drill down into how annoyed are you? How annoyed are you at the likes of who is this Bill guy? I don't want to sound like, too much like Nicky Graham. Who is he? Who is he? But, I mean, who is he? He's a computer engineer. Great, brilliant at that. Well done, Bill. Gone on to make a series of very sound investments and amass a huge personal fortune. He is not an epidemiologist or a medical professional, is he?
And we could pretend that he's got expertise in stopping computer viruses, where you've got a situation where every time there's a virus infection, there is a definite moment of intervention. You've connected your computer to something new. You could have intervened at that point to stop a virus infecting your computer. He completely failed on that. He's completely failed with computer viruses. So why on earth are we listening to him about human viruses?
That's a really good point, actually. That's a really good point. And do you think there's a certain arrogance here? The likes of Bill Gates, who think because he's been very successful in one area of his life and amassed a huge personal fortune, he's seen as this kind of like wise old sage who must have essentially the keys to human intellect in our universe. And actually, Bill Gates will know about as much as COVID-19 as the next person, presumably.
Yeah, and we're so used to people being completely discredited and being put down and being told they're not qualified to speak on it. And yet here the press are constantly listening to him when he really isn't qualified to speak on it. And you can't help feeling that he's surrounded himself by yes men. And so he has, huge belief that he knows that everything that he knows is right. He never gets challenged.
Yeah, and I think as well, so with a lot of these people, when they become almost above the wider population, so there's so much money and they do operate on a different echelon to the rest of us, I wonder whether they see themselves as almost like having a duty to be human caregivers in a way. Something like this happens, he goes, right, it's on me now as this massive global figure to sort out all of the world's problems. And actually, no, I'd rather you did make better computers. But anyway, Dr Clare Craig, thank you very, very much, co-chair of the Heart Group, an organisation comprised of actual doctors, actual scientists and actual experts.
I think you are being a bit unfair because he does, of course, have the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. He does invest massively in lots of humanitarian things, which often includes disease prevention,
yes,
and finding medications and vaccines for diseases across the world, and usually the third world, so he's not entirely clueless about this kind of thing. But as you say, he isn't a virologist or an epidemiologist, so maybe he should shut up for now.
Well, there we go. Right, OK.
Welcome to the GB News YouTube channel. You can watch us live 24 hours a day, catch up on your favourite shows, and join in the conversation in the comments below.
Don't forget to subscribe and you'll never miss any of our exclusive content.